dating somebody who is beneath you, who, you're clearly out of his league, he will always take it out on you. And this also goes for a man who clearly can't afford you. Because these emasculated, insecure men, they're gonna...
Isn't that such a stupid statement? He can't afford me. Are you a prostitute?
Ever wondered if the phrase, "you can't afford me," is ironic when used by women who don't want to be objectified? Just think about it for a second. That statement, in essence, is a price tag, a commodity value, and yet it comes from those who fight against being treated as mere objects. Isn't that a paradox? And what does this say about their views on relationships versus wealth? It's a tangled web of contradictions. So, let's unravel this. Let's explore this controversial issue further. Imagine a woman proudly stating, "Men can't afford me," yet claiming she doesn't want to be objectified. A contradictory statement, don't you think? If we delve deeper into the context, it becomes clear that we're dealing with a form of self-objectification. We're talking about a woman who sees herself as something that can be bought or rented, an object with a price tag. Now let's reflect on this. When we buy an object, we consider its value, its utility, and yes, our ability to afford it. When a woman says, "Men can't afford me," she's essentially treating herself as an object, an entity that can be bought. She's putting a price on herself, and in doing so, she's objectifying herself, even if unintentionally. Ironically, this stands in stark contrast to the fight against objectification, a fight many women are part of, a fight to be seen for more than their physical attributes, to be respected for their intellect, their character, their abilities. Yet with statements like "men can't afford me," they're undermining their own cause. The irony runs deeper when we compare this to a marketplace. In a marketplace, commodities are bought and sold based on their perceived value. When a woman likens herself to a commodity that can be bought, she's reducing her own value to the size of a man's wallet. She's commodifying herself, making herself a product that can be bought or rented. This is self-objectification in its purest form. Yet we must ask, what is the price she's putting on herself? Is it her intellect, her character, her abilities, or is it something else entirely? Is she equating her worth to materialistic measures, thus further objectifying herself? This is a thought-provoking paradox, a contradiction that challenges our understanding of self-worth, objectification, and the value we place on ourselves and others. It's a paradox that makes us question the very foundations of our societal norms and values. So, aren't these women unknowingly turning themselves into commodities? It's a question that we need to ponder upon as we navigate through the complexities of our modern society. If the goal is a committed relationship, shouldn't character trump the size of the bank account? Let's delve into that. When seeking a partner, what should be the prime focus? Is it the size of their bank account or the strength of their character? In an ideal world, we'd all agree that character should take precedence. After all, money is transient, but character? That's the stuff of longevity. Take a moment to imagine a relationship built on the foundation of financial status. What happens when the money runs out, or when someone wealthier comes along? The relationship could crumble, proving it was as fleeting as the money it was built upon. On the other hand, a relationship built on character, on shared values and mutual respect, has a far better chance of weathering life's storms. Money can't buy kindness, honesty, or the ability to make someone laugh when they're having a bad day. These are the traits that truly matter in a partnership. However, it's important to acknowledge the reality of our society. We live in a world where material wealth is often equated with success, with value. This mindset can seep into our personal relationships, leading some to prioritize a partner's financial status over their character. This is particularly apparent in the case of the woman who claims that men can't afford her. By placing a price tag on herself, she reduces her own value to a monetary figure. And in doing so, she objectifies herself, turning herself into a commodity to be bought and sold. So, let's circle back to the question. Shouldn't character trump the size of the bank account in a committed relationship? Yes, it should. But unfortunately, societal pressures and materialistic values can sometimes cloud this perspective. In the end, it's essential to remember that a person's worth is not defined by their financial status. Their true value lies in their character, their kindness, their integrity. Because when all is said and done, is a man's worth really tied to his bank account? What about Chad and Tyrone, who seemingly get a free pass? Isn't this a paradox? We're delving into an interesting conundrum here, folks. The concept of these Chad and Tyrone characters, who seemingly bypass the need to afford. Now this is where things get a bit tangled. The argument we've been dissecting is that some women objectify themselves, arguing that men can't afford them. They are equating themselves to a commodity, a product with a price tag. But then, we have these Chad and Tyrone characters. They don't have to pay, they don't have to afford. They're given a free ticket to the show. Now doesn't that contradict the whole affordability argument? Isn't it ironic that while some men are held to a monetary standard, others seemingly aren't? You see, it's like a velvet rope situation. Some guys are let right through while others are left outside staring at steep cover charge. Is it fair? One could argue it's not. It's almost as if there's a VIP list and Chad and Tyrone are on it. They get the benefits without the bill. They get the privileges without the price. But what about the other guys? The ones who are told they can't afford the admission? Are they paying the price for Chad and Tyrone's free pass? It's like a game of musical chairs, where Chad and Tyrone always have a seat when the music stops, and the other guys, they're left standing, wallet in hand, wondering what just happened. And therein lies the paradox. On one hand, there's this argument of affordability and objectification. On the other, there's a glaring exception to this rule. And that exception is Chad and Tyrone. So as we peel back the layers of this complex issue, we're left with a burning question. So, are these men getting a free ride while others pay the price? It's a question worth pondering, don't you think? Could this be seen as a form of prostitution, where talents are used for personal or financial gain? Let's delve into this perspective. The term prostitution often carries a heavy stigma, mostly associated with the selling of sexual services. However, it can also refer to the unworthy or corrupt use of one's talents for personal or financial gain. If we look at it in this light, we could argue that a woman who claims that a man can't afford her is, in fact, objectifying and commodifying herself. She is essentially placing a price tag on her time, her company, and perhaps even her affection. She is offering these, not in exchange for love, respect, or commitment, but for material wealth. This is not so different from a transactional relationship where the exchange of goods or services is the primary focus. Now let's consider the perspective of the man she chooses to date or marry. He is expected to pay this price to afford her, so to speak. Yet there are others, let's call them Chad and Tyrone, who have enjoyed her company without having to pay a dime. They were given a free pass, while he is left footing the bill. Isn't there an inherent unfairness in this situation? The man she chooses to be with is, in essence, paying for what others receive for free. He is not just paying for her time and affection, but also subsidizing the enjoyment of others. This raises a question about the nature of the relationship. Is it authentic and committed based on mutual respect and shared values? Or is it more akin to a business arrangement where the highest bidder gets the prize? So, looking at it this way, one could argue that this is a form of prostitution. Not in the traditional sense perhaps, but in the sense of using one's talents and attributes unworthily or corruptly for personal or financial gain. Could this be a twisted form of pay to play? So where does this leave us in our understanding of the "you can't afford me" statement? We've talked about the irony of self-objectification, how, in an attempt to assert self-worth, some women unwittingly reduce themselves to commodities. They end up objectifying themselves, using language more suited to buying and selling than human relationships. We've discussed the significance of character over financial status in a committed relationship. If someone genuinely seeks an authentic bond, they should focus on the person's character, not the size of their bank account. However, the "you can't afford me" statement seems to suggest otherwise, focusing more on material wealth than emotional connection. Then there's the Chad and Tyrone conundrum. The idea that certain men are given free access while others are expected to pay, and in doing so, indirectly finance the enjoyment of others. It's a puzzling scenario that further complicates the dynamics of relationships. Lastly, we've tackled the prostitution perspective, the unworthy or corrupt use of one's talents for personal or financial gain, a perspective that views the "you can't afford me" statement as a transactional exchange, where the boyfriend or husband ends up paying for what others have received for free. So, next time you hear "you can't afford me," what will you think? Will it be a statement of self-worth, or a reflection of self-objectification? A comment on material wealth, or a hint at the depth of character? Remember, words carry weight and their implications can be far-reaching. Did you enjoy this deep dive into the "you can't afford me" phenomenon? If you found it insightful and want to see more discussions like this, smash that like button. Your engagement helps us to keep creating content that challenges, enlightens, and entertains. Don't want to miss out on our next video? Subscribe to our channel and turn on the bell notifications so you're updated whenever we post new content. Lastly, if you know someone who would find this discussion interesting, don't hesitate to share this video with them. Thanks for watching, and remember, your interaction fuels our motivation to delve deeper into these fascinating topics. Stay tuned for more.